progress.
Okay, call our planning commission meeting to order. It's Wednesday, July 20th, 2022. Time is 5 minutes after 7. Present are Severin Johnson, Ted Mickelson, and Wayne Franson as commissioners. We will first open for public hearing comments relating to a proposal which the city is considering to change our city code in Title 11, Part 9-2. This has to do with the natural hazard study, which is required of all new construction. The issue of this ordinance has been in place for a number of years. The issue that it presents that we want to further address and deal with is there are many residents many buildings in the city that really are not affected by natural hazards. And the city gets a map. It's been generally every year, which is updated by the U.S. Geological Survey as well as a civil engineering firm that specializes in natural hazards. And they identify areas in the city that are subject to possible hazards. But irrespective of that, we still require a natural hazard study of every new construction, whether they're affected, whether they're shown as being affected on the map or not. So the idea behind this is that new construction would not be required to have a natural hazard study unless it's identified on the map as an area that is susceptible to it. Primarily the earthquake and flooding and the avalanche. So the studies oftentimes range anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000, and so in many instances it'll save people that money, and we'll just require a study if their lot is in a natural hazard area, as shown on the map. So that's the idea. A study will not be required only if their lot is identified as being in a hazard area. We have not gotten any written public comment about the proposed change. And so tonight is the public hearing for any public comment to the Planning Commission. And it's on our agenda tonight, and we'll further discuss that and be making a proposal and recommendation to the City Council on it. So, that said, we'll open it up for public comment. Don't think there's anybody tuned into our meeting tonight. We have one person in attendance. Are there any public comments that you would choose to make, Ben?
Can I just ask a question just to clarify?
Please.
So the city will require the natural hazard study only of the property that is within the geological hazard survey or whatever that the city gets from the U.S. Geological, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay.
And the city will, that map is on the city website or it's accessible there? Or
It is. It's part of this Title 11.
Okay.
So as we get new map, we'll put it on there and update it.
Okay.
So it'll be clear for people to go to and see, and specifically what lots are part of that
Perfect.
requirement.
Okay.
So. All right. Seeing that there's no further public comment, we will conclude the public hearing on that. It's 7:10. And we'll move into our regular Planning Commission agenda. I have present Commissioners Severin Johnson, Ted Mickelson, Wayne Franson. Others are excused tonight. but we do have a quorum present. Severin, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And Ted, would you offer invocation for us? Yes. Invite those in attendance to join us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful we could gather here this evening as representatives of the city of Woodland Hills to discuss the business that we have at hand. And we're grateful for this community, and we're grateful for those who have served to provide their experience and expertise to this community, and those who serve our country as well, to protect our freedoms and our rights, and these opportunities that we are afforded to participate in these community events. I pray that that will bless us tonight, that we might be able to make those decisions which are important and have the right guidance to lead the direction of the city and the decisions that need to be made in the planning commission meeting tonight. We pray that God bless this community, that we might continue to thrive, and that the community will continue to be protected. And these things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Any public comment from anybody present? Okay, no public comment. Next item on the agenda is approval of the June 15, 2022 Planning Commission minutes. And I'll send, I sent a draft out, and I haven't followed up that draft with a final. But the one change that was made to it, I made an error on it with an individual. I mentioned Severin had made a second to a motion, and it was Larry who had done that. And I had it on my notes, I just transposed it from him to you. Anyway, I made that correction, so that's the only correction I made to it. So I'll take that.
And Laura had some typos she said.
Yeah, she did. Thank you. And I don't know what those were. I read through it, and I didn't do a comparison by comparison, but she made some corrections with typos. So.
So you then corrected that version with Larry?
Yes.
Her version?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's one I will send out to y'all.
Okay, I move that we accept the minutes as
Alright.
discussed.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. And the next item is the subject of the public hearing. This actually was proposed by Corbett as he looked at things and felt that there could be some changes to that. When we first got into it, it's probably 5 years ago or so. Weren't quite sure how it would work out, but as it goes forward, there's just a lot that are required to do it, have to pay the fee and come back. There's no hazard, and so there's no mitigation. So we felt that this was the best way of addressing that, and we make that specifically. It says that a natural hazard study shall be required for every application for occupied structures and habitable spaces where the lot on which the structure will be located has been identified through government-sponsored studies, research, surveys, analysis, etc., as an area that may be susceptible to a natural hazard as identified on the city's natural hazard map number 1. And with the exception of a permit for renovation, remodel, or repair of an existing occupied structure or habitable space, if the proposed application does not expand the footprint or scale of the existing occupied structure or habitable space. So I'll just limit those studies then to those identified on the map as being in a hazardous area. It's not to say they can't build there. That means that they have to, that, I don't think that's in your package. It's on the website. But it just means that they need to mitigate whatever the study indicates is the issue or problem. Usually, we try to work around that. For example, Robert Nelson had some of his, a lot in his subdivision, there's a fault that runs right through it. And so that was identified in the plat. And he actually had a study performed, but so it was, the lot owner who bought that did not have to do it, but they have to design their house or not taking that fault into consideration. Won't be able to construct on it, so. Anyway, that's the change that will be made in it. Any comments or questions on it?
I remember when we first discussed that some years ago, and at that time, it didn't make a lot of sense to me, because there were so many areas of Woodland Hills that are really not in any of those zones. And so this just makes sense to me that we finally fixed something that we probably should have argued more about before.
You're probably right there, yep, so. Okay, I'll take.
I think it's more consistent with what you would see for communities.
Yeah.
So, I got no argument. It's
Okay,
a good change.
take a motion on it.
I move that we recommend to change City Code Title 11-9-2, only requiring those homes or structures identified in a hazard zone that's listed as noted would have to submit or do a hazard study.
Okay,
I second it.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very well, I'll forward that to the city council to take up. The next item, under number 7, is the fencing ordinance. There's a little document there. We discussed this last meeting, and I said I would come up with some wording on it, which I have, and that's included in that first paragraph. Now, personally, it's my views on ordinance changes are change it as minimal as possible. Whatever the discussion is, it needs to be changed. Make the change in as minimal fashion as possible. And that's what I've tried to do here. And in going forward, I mentioned this the last meeting, you weren't here, Severin, but I found there was this paragraph that addresses this in our development and construction standards.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that, and so forth. So what, there's one change that I propose that we make to that, and I'll get to that in a minute, but incorporate that idea then into the ordinance itself. And it's a little bit different than what we had talked about last time with the definition of, or the extent of the clear vision area. Last time we talked about it being 250 feet. And with the diagram explaining and showing how that 250 feet runs. I guess personally I felt that was maybe overkill for it. And this is already in our development and construction standards, this clear vision area of 35 feet. So what I'm proposing is that we keep that. The diagram, interestingly, is for another city, just an example, but they show 25 feet. And what I would propose is that we make that 35 feet, and that then, is the same as the development and construction standard being 35 feet in distance. So with that in mind, that's the wording that I've come up with for us to consider. It's not cast in stone. If we feel that we need to make some changes to it, let's do that tonight. But this is, I'm trying to make minimal changes with things. In the development construction standards, above the word street property lines, and we had a discussion about this last time, they changed that to street right-of-way lines. Because usually the right-of-way lines are going to go up against the property lines, but some people will misunderstand sometimes property lines and feels that their property line goes to the ditch or the road when it really doesn't. So if we substitute property with right-of-way, then I think that part of the definition is more, I can't say clear, but at least
Accurate.
more accurate, thanks. When we use right-of-way instead of having confusion with property lines. So, open it up for thoughts or comments on what I've drafted there. And again, it is a little different than what we had talked about last time, but my thoughts are, we make that, 35 feet on each side of the corner there. I think that is sufficient, my personal view, so. Thoughts?
Maybe some clarification. Well, one, spelling, first sentence, 40, I think it's 40.
Oh, yeah.
It says fences or hedges taller than 42 inches, which is what, 3.5 feet?
Yep.
Um,
Again, that's with keeping with the development and construction standards.
shall not be located less than 30 feet from a property line abutting a street right of way.
And that's already part of our existing ordinance, up to that point.
And can run along the side or rear lot property line as long as the fence does not extend forward of the front plane of the residence. Which again, I guess I'm struggling. Fence or hedge shall not be, and I know this is part of our current, but fence or hedge shall not be located, that height, shall not be located less than 30 feet from a property line abutting a street right of way. So if you have a side yard abutting a street right of way, your fence or hedge has to be 30 feet away from that?
Yes.
So basically you can have, if your setback on your house is 30 feet, basically saying you can't have a fence or hedge in your side yard.
Correct.
Up to the front
Closer
side
than
of the
30
house.
feet. Closer than 30 feet to the road.
Well, then it just says,
You could have it 35 feet down the side. You could have a fence at 35 feet because it's past the 30-foot.
because that's where I'm getting
Distance.
confused, let me see. Here we're saying, shall not be located less than 30 feet from a property line, so it doesn't say like front property line, it just says a property
Yes,
line. So that could be side, rear, front,
correct.
so you can't have anything within 30 feet of a property line, a fence or hedge, that's over 42 inches.
Correct. And that's our current code.
And can run along the side or rear lot property line as long as the fence does not extend forward to the front plane of the residence.
See,
So
that's
that
where,
puts it along the property line.
that puts it on the property line, so it doesn't have to be 30 feet back if it doesn't extend beyond the front plane of the residence.
So shall not be, I'm just trying to work, shall not be less than 30 feet from a property line abutting a street right of way and can run along the side or rear lot property line as long as the fence does not extend forward at the front plane of the residence. And nowhere,
trying to figure this out.
You're not a regular person.
You're
You're an
right.
engineer.
That's what I'm having a hard time, I think, reading this, because I a fence or hedge, so it says, shall not be located, see, if I just read that first part, I think, shall not be located less than 30 feet from a property line abutting a street right of way. And,
this is what we're trying
that's
to
what's throwing me
promote.
off, can run along the side of a property line. So in one sense, we're saying you have to be 30 feet away from the property line, regardless of where it is.
But
But it doesn't say
we
but,
really-
it says and can run along the, it's almost like contradicting by using that word and.
Well, maybe we should just put but.
And that's what I'm wondering, that's what I'm trying to reason in my mind.
Okay,
Is do we need to use the word but, because that and is throwing me off.
and maybe but might be a more accurate word
Yeah.
to use there.
Because we're saying one thing, then we're saying and, but they're not, it's not a but, it's kind of contradicting itself.
I think the but's a good idea.
Then it makes sense to me. But can run alongside a railroad as long as it's, then that makes sense to me, fine.
Okay,
Now, there's one issue that I see with this. Because we've said the clear vision is 35 feet. So it really, in some of the zones, the front setback is 30 feet. And so they really couldn't even come up to the front plane of the house. They would have to be 5 feet back from the front plane of the house in order for the 35 feet to apply. And so, I don't know how we change it though, you know.
Well,
I guess the change would change the 35 feet to 30. As far, and so that would be the minimum set. But if somebody has a 50-foot setback, then they can't bring that fence in front of that 50-foot plane of the house, wherever that is, so.
But we don't really have any right now. We don't have any zones that are less than 30 feet, do we?
No,
Front setback.
no,
That's the least.
it's either 30 or 50. Then I propose with this, then the diagram would be similar to this diagram that we would put there to show the 35 feet back on each side.
the only other thing I would bring up, and this is the engineer in me. I'll caveat it by saying, after going through all the calculations and drawing out triangles using different methods, this is obviously more restrictive, I think, in any circumstance. More restricted than any other methods. The only, so I don't have a problem with that, because I think this is gonna require people to be, it'll provide more clear area than like the Ashton method. The only time I get concerned over things like this, and I know other cities do it, and this is maybe just the engineer in me, because the way we engineer today is, we engineer so if we have to go to court, we can defend it based on proven scientific methods. And that's where the only sticky point for me is the arbitrary pick up to 35 feet, right? That's just arbitrary, we don't know why. So someone went to court because they got in a wreck, they said, well, it says 35 feet, well, how'd you get it? We decided that was a good number. I mean, I can bet you're gonna get eaten alive in court. However, I know
We
other
fall
communities
back
do it,
To the development construction standards. Again, where that comes
arbitrary
from,
number.
yeah.
I think we're falling back to another arbitrary number. Now,
How could,
I
how
caveat
can we
that-
prove it though, Mr. Engineer?
what's that?
How can we scientifically prove what the optimal distance back should be?
Well, so I don't know if you were the last one. The only thing, like we do in engineering, there's actually AASHTO which is the American Association of State Transportation Officials. They have a methodology that, where you calculate that, it's called site triangle. You calculate the site triangle based on the slope of the road or speed limit of the vehicles, and it's basically using reaction time and braking distance. So if someone pulls out, someone coming, you can see far enough that you can pull out without causing someone to have to brake, basically is what it's based on. And that has been proven.
Okay.
So that's how we do
And that's-
engineering.
And that's what.
That's what
was
gels
on
in,
my mind.
yeah, that's what gels in my head, because I know if we went to court and we said, yes, here's our ordinance, it's the AASHTO, site triangle calculations, which is your proven science of doing this, you got something defensible. To me, this isn't that defensible, but, like I said, I think it is more conservative, and the backup plan, I guess, would be, you do the AASHTO calculation. And you say, yes, what we have is more conservative than AASHTO. Assuming it is now, or maybe in case where it's not, then I think you would just be able to lie in court,
I mean,
but-
most of the city, the speed limit's either 35, 30, or 25. And so we've got three different speed limits that could apply depending on what the intersection is.
So if you applied AASHTO, you likely would take the fastest speed limit, because that would be,
I just
The
put a little
greatest.
table, I just put a little table in there with the, like this, it would be a diagram. It would say, here's your measurement, here's where you measure from to, here's 3 lines based on the speed limit of the road you're on, here's that distance of that measurement. But, once again, I think this is more conservative, and given that we're probably gonna have very few times this is gonna apply, because it's only gonna apply if there is a side or rear yard abutting an intersection.
well, it
Well,
could be
and-
front,
Well, the front
It's
depends,
a
you have to set back 30 feet, right?
yes, but it has to be cleared,
Right.
so,
No fence or hedges,
right.
but
About 42 inches.
about 42 inches, so, which is your clear vision, so basically that front is already taken care of by our setback of the fence beyond the front
The
plan.
other thing
Other than what
that, let
seven
me
inches
just
or.
pose this, is everybody, everywhere, currently, except Four Seasons, you can't have a vision barrier fence. It has to be 75% open. So even if it came to the front plane of the house, and the house is set back 30 feet, is a 75% open fence that's 6 feet high going to be a vision barrier for somebody coming along the other street?
Well, it can't be 6 feet high.
Yeah. If it's back
On the
beyond the
backside.
front plane of the house.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's not as tall as it could be, unless it's a sport court fence, a sport fence.
I think we're good. This was the big hiccup with the city council,
Yeah.
and,
And I think we've addressed their concerns with what you're proposing. I mean, it
I
makes
think
sense
so
to me,
too.
you know, it gets rid of that 10 foot really dead space that the old ordinance had it in there between where you could put a fence along a property line. And that's what we wanted to get rid of.
as a side note, there are some issues in state statute where a person puts a fence on their property, not along the property line, that creates a potential problem years down the road with it becoming a right that the other party has then, because that fence has been used as barrier between the two lots, and we have that situation now with a person who's trying to sell their home, their fence. They didn't put the fence up, a prior owner did, and the adjoining homeowner is saying, well, that's our property now. And it's crossing the property line, so it's because the fence was not put down along the property line that that issue is being created. It's not insurmountable, but it can create a problem.
I mean, from a related situation, the property line between my house and Callister's house, I know exactly where it goes. The front one, the front marker is still there, it's up by Loafer Drive, and I know basically where the back one is. I don't know what happened to it, but it was there when it was there. Well, over the years, and one of the reasons I'm on the planning commission was because you may remember that I was concerned about this wire fence that Callister's put out to put horses in. And that's when you suggested that I join the planning commission. Anyway, I mean, that wire strand fence is still there, you know, and it's not on the property line, it's back from the property line. But over time, that side of my house, I've added grass and so on, and I take care of it. But technically, it's part of Callister's property, not all of it.
Have you had it that way for is it 7 years where you can claim it?
No, it's actually 19 years,
Oh,
I
19.
think, yeah.
No, I haven't been there 19 years.
No, you only
But,
got 10 more years
but,
to go.
I mean, I can see where somebody, you know, I would tell somebody, if I was selling my house, this is where the property line is. All this grass, this is really the Callister's. I'm always taking care of it, you know, and I water it and everything else. But I can see where that state statute could come into play in something like that. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, are we comfortable with the wording that I've done, with one change with but there?
I am.
And see where, again, the secondary idea was to leave this clear vision area. My suggestion too is we change that street property lines to street right-of-way lines in the development
Is the
construction
road
standard.
right of way throughout the city 56 feet? Or are there some exceptions?
There are some exceptions to that, there's some 50.
Okay,
In fact, Woodland Hills Road is the only one that has a 56-foot right-of-way.
Woodland Hills Drive. So even Summit's not 56.
Correct.
So all the other
Feeder
Loafer and
roads.
Eagle Nest and everything
All
else,
50.
it's a 50. Okay. And I know.
The pavement is, not pavement, but the asphalt is the same width.
Yeah.
But it's the
It
side
must
of
be
that
on.
that,
The rock line ditches really are part of the right of way.
they are. Yep, they're in the right of way, they belong to the city. So.
I'm like, what do we mind then? Jump for radius, can we
Yeah. We repaired one that the city damaged with snow removal, and so the city went up and did some repair to their rock line ditch.
Remember you touched all of it.
Yeah, they did, they added,
Okay, put in his rock line ditch.
yeah.
I put in my own,
But use
We
the
charge some
city's
for it now.
material to do it.
What's that?
You use city material to do it,
Yeah.
some of it, the rocks.
Yeah, rocks are all city material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Carmen said, sure, I would have had to do it, so why don't you go ahead and do it?
Yeah, they were just stockpiling them down there off Bear Hollow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what cause that's what the Corpus had taken down there, cause we have to do those ditches down there, cause it was left over for mitigation. So Corpus had just stockpiled down at Bear Hollow, cause we'll use it to do those ditches on Eagle Nest. And so, or as long as you're stockpiling to do ditches on Eagle Nest, I got a ditch here that needs some rock. So that's what it's for.
Go ahead.
So they dumped a couple loads in there while they were hauling down. Yeah, I still got a bunch more ditch, but I'm waiting for the development agreement to get finished before I do any more.
Okay, what do you think, Ted?
Like I said, I gave you kind of my thought, I'm okay with it, but it's just the engineer, he says I have a hard time picking arbitrary numbers.
Ted, would it be too much to ask to do a calculation?
I did, yeah, I can show you. So he was missed last meeting, so I brought a couple examples last time of doing it the Ashton way. And it actually turns out this way
Is
is
more
more
conservative.
conservative than the Ashton way. At least in most likely in this city because of the speed limits.
Yeah.
Here's the Ashland. So this ends up being then the area that would be covered by a lot owner. You can see it's a lot smaller,
Oh, yeah.
but it gives the distance coming up here. But that's the calculations that they've used with the.
I mean, with what we did with the 35 or 30, whatever it is, this it actually shortens that 150-foot line.
Yeah, this one's based on measurements from different locations, so they actually do it as though the driver's sitting at the stop sign or stop bar, whichever's there. Cars stop there, and they have to look this direction. It's a measurement basically in the oncoming lane, measurement going up that lane for so far, and that's based on the ability for a driver coming down that road to brake. That's basically what it is.
I think my suggestion is that when we present this to the city council, that we talk about AASHTO and the calculations, and that our proposal is even more conservative than what AASHTO would require. As a selling point for what we're trying to accomplish.
At least in our city,
Yeah,
in situations like that in our city.
I mean, if you've got a speed limit of 50 coming up to an intersection, it's gonna be it's gonna be different. It's gotta be different.
Yeah, if you drive like on Bangor or some of those streets where they have sound walls, you know, get to the intersection, see the sound walls are 45 across, that's how they determine where those sound walls go, is that map right there.
And the problem is, in this part of the city up here, we've got ordinances that at least in theory, conflict. Because we tell people, remove the minimum amount of trees from your property in order to build your house. And so there are a lot of intersections that the trees come right up to the intersection.
Yeah, I was coming down Woodland Hills Drive about 3 weeks ago in this fall valley, and there was a girl that was coming down Broad Hollow and just didn't even stop at all. Just right through the intersection, same speed, and I'll bet them that close. Val hit his brakes. If he hadn't hit his brakes pretty hard, they would have been a T-bone. And I thought, wow, she didn't even stop. Well, about last Friday or Saturday, something like Friday night, we took Aiden out driving because he's practicing for his driving test. And we were coming down Broad Hollow, and he wasn't getting ready to stop. And I knew there was a stop sign, but I'm looking and I couldn't see it. Till you get right to the intersection, you can't really see the stop sign because of the trees that are over. So I was gonna tell Corbett about it, but I forgot.
Yeah.
I mean, I ride my bike up there every day. And I think it was yesterday, I was coming down Eagle Nest, Hills Drive, and the stop sign is on Woodland Hills Drive. And there was a white pickup that just kept going. And I was going 25 miles an hour on a bicycle. And there was no way I was gonna stop. I don't think he ever put his brakes on, but he was going slow enough that I could swing out and not get hit, or not hit him.
Yeah. Okay,
So we want a motion?
yes, please.
I move that we accept the fencing ordinance amendment to 10-11-8B.1E with the exception of adding but instead of and. Where is it?
Yeah, second line.
Second line. Abutting a street or way, but can lawn along the side or rear lot line as long as the fence does not extend forward in the front plane of the residence.
And can you include changing property lines to right-of-way
Right.
lines in the
Agreed.
development
Change,
construction?
change property line to
Right,
road right of way.
okay. All right, is there a second? I'll second it if you don't feel comfortable.
I was just waiting to see it. I'll say, with the caveat that, yeah, I do agree with this, but if we ever go to court, I kinda give my concern, so I can absolve myself.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Very well.
But I don't think this is gonna apply in very many cases.
No. Okay, next item on the agenda is, we're back to shipping containers. What I've given you is how the ordinance would read. The red is what has been changed and modified, and our attorney has looked at it. In fact, he drafted most of all of this. One of our concerns, as you remember, was this, with shipping containers, to take in a $1,000 bond to make sure that things get done properly. And our attorney had no difficulty with us doing that. We'll need to modify our accessory building to maybe have another page if it is a container or semi-trailer. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this to this body before. It's kind of mine error, and I actually should have gone to city council first and said, how do you feel about shipping containers and semi-trailers being accessory buildings? They may come back and say, we don't want it, we don't agree with it, and so this is out the window. And I should have done that first to gauge their feeling on it, and I didn't. So I don't know how it will be received. I know, I suspect there'll be some votes against it, because not everybody wants shipping containers around the city.
You know, and I look at this that, well, that may be a very appropriate thing to do, Wayne. That we were really, more than anything else, at least I was, we were reacting to the fact that there are shipping containers and semi-trucks already being used in the city. And we wanted to be able to clean that up and put some lipstick on the pig, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, the other action would have been change the ordinance to not allow it, and that's what we need to do. If the council says no, we don't want them, then we'd have to change the ordinance and say they're not allowed to be used. Just like we do the trailers, the live-in trailers, we don't allow them. So we'll see where it goes, but right now it is what it is. Are you all comfortable with it? I have mixed feelings myself about it, but not enough to say against it.
Well, like my dad used to say, just throw against the wall and see
See,
what sticks.
yeah.
I think in F, in the last line, I don't think you need to have an S on vehicle. Just any other linear vehicle is not approved to be converted or used as an accessory building.
So any camp trailer, recreational vehicle, and any other live-in vehicles?
And then, just a vehicle, you don't need, are they really going to have more than one?
Yeah. We've got one place that's trashy, and they've got a camper, that it's not working. I don't think they're using it as an accessory building, but
And they have used it at some point?
they keep,
Has somebody
they
living
keep
in it?
trash in it, junk in it. It's a storage building. So,
Okay, I see what you mean. Either way, that's fine.
okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we'll take a motion.
I've got another question.
Okay.
Is what's in black what's currently as part of the,
Yes,
wonderful.
that's, that was my understanding.
I've tried to resolve,
I gotta go, see you guys, thank you.
Okay, Ben, and we got the, development agreement,
Yes.
so, thank you,
Thank you, sorry to interrupt.
no problem.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for being here.
I just remember that shipping container that's over on Eagle Nest. And at first, it was not set back far. And then they moved it back to 30 feet. And the front setback in that part of the city is 50 feet. But we've said an accessory building could be 30 feet from a front property. So I'm just wondering whether or not this conflicts with that. This says corner lot. And that doesn't have to be a corner lot over there,
No.
what that one is. I think this is fine, as I think about it, Wayne. I think it's fine. Because it's really specifically saying a corner lot, we want to, if the front setback is 30 feet, the side setback has to be 30 feet. And we've said that all along, we've discussed that at length. Okay, I'm fine.
Are we allowing? We're allowing though a container, really, or any accessory building to be. We don't have a restriction on the, unless it's a corner lot.
There is a shipping container semi-trailer cannot be placed forward from the front plane of the residence.
Okay, where is that? I was just kind of looking.
B on page 2. Which means it would have to be beyond the front setback, right?
You say it's E?
B.
Oh, B, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay,
See, we've got,
yeah,
where is it?
I'm good,
Here it
I'm good
is.
with that.
The current 1011 2CD, when an accessory building is located, well, that's corner lot, sorry.
The setback is 5 feet from a property line.
Not in front though.
Does it say that? It addresses that for containers. I'm just wondering if it says that for a regular accessory building.
Well, I mean, to some extent it does.
Accessory building shall not be erected in any required setbacks.
Okay, then that covers it. Is it 30 feet or 50 feet?
So that 101 Eagle Nest ought to be 50 feet back.
And it
But
should,
that's
since it's a
R1
trailer,
has 2 PUD.
this passes, if it's a trailer, that's gets grandfathered in, it shouldn't pass the front of the house.
But we
Yeah.
made it move it back to 30 feet. I remember Jody did that, and then I noticed that it was moved back. Because I ride by that virtually every day.
That's one that got put before we had any restrictions against it, so.
Did he do it 30 feet from the street or 30 feet from the street right away?
Well,
That's a good question.
I don't know.
It's
It's further
surrounded
back
by-
than it was originally.
One thing is it's surrounded by vegetation, so you don't see it until you're right up on it or passing it,
That's true.
so, but, okay. Any other questions?
Okay, I'll move that we approve 10-11-2C on all accessory buildings as written.
And 2D,
Oh, and 10-11-2D as written.
okay.
Second.
Second, Ted, all right, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Take care of that. The next item is trails. The Parks, Trails and Recreation Committee has, working with Janet primarily, Janet Lump. And part of it, my suggestion. They've done a map here, if you wanna come over and gather around it. Of the city property and the easements that are that the city has. Well, the major ones are drainage easements, but a few are kinda interesting, they're trail easements up here that run in front of some of the properties. But the idea, what I wanted to look at and promote with this was, in the development agreement with Summer Creek, they're gonna be giving the city $500 for every lot that they sell. And, so it's for the city to develop our own trails, not in Summer Creek. So the ideal place is where city already owns property, and maybe potentially try to convert some of these drainage easements, if we can, into trails. So with that in mind, Dan, that's, Janet kinda took the reins and went forward and had this created, and we've got a book about that thick that she's copied every single plat in the city and looked at that to see what easements are on that. So this is the blue here is a equestrian easement, but it's all, the orange is all the oranges are drainage easements with the city.
And the yellow's trails.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is really where the flood mitigation goes.
correct. So, I guess in my view, one of the ideal places to try to develop into a trail would be this, whether we try to start it up here off to the side or come down here. And the challenge is to get from here to here. These are nice areas right here, and they would make some nice, put some nice trails in there. If we can get to them through through means. We'd have to get an easement from this property owner if we did. We could take part of it on the road and come down here, but then this is privately owned property here. So there's those kinds of issues that,
Is this Hanks here?
no, this has already been sold to from this development here with this cul-de-sac. Back in here. This is where Glenn,
Is that northeast circle?
yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, so
Okay.
that's a private lot in there now. So, anyway, that's the purpose of this, and looking at it, and we want to keep this in mind as we update our trails portion of the general plan. Did any of you have that assigned to you? Can't remember who had that assigned to them,
Trails?
the trails part. But we want to do what we can to further develop areas here that we could consider trail. This is already over here, this has already got some parking, which is desirable, off the park. Yeah, somewhere. I think it might be over here more, but,
No, this is all wooded. This whole thing.
Is it all wooded?
It's right here. It's
okay, off the side of the main
Right.
farm.
Yeah.
So,
This is the big grass field.
yeah. So you could easily come over here and start, maybe put a trail outside of the fence over there, or just something to keep in mind as we,
I mean, yeah,
As
we've
we go
already
forward.
got, the
That's right.
asphalt trail that's
Around
around
there.
there. And through there and there.
so those potentially, we could upgrade with the money that we're getting and, to.
Wooded trail right now goes right down through.
See, this, where this yellow is,
Those are-
is where they put the fence
Fence
along
along.
here, and they've already put wood chips along the fence line for a trail.
It's right down along here, it's not through the park.
No,
Right
it's,
here.
it's here.
Those two lots that the city
The
acquired.
two lots
These are
that city
here,
acquired.
too.
This is where the serpentine.
Then that's over here.
Comes
I
right
think.
here,
Comes across the,
comes across right here,
Yeah,
just like that, and there's wood chips along it too.
yeah, they've got the split rail fence along one side.
Mhm. And then it stops about, well, it stops right at his property line.
yeah. So, here's where the water tanks are. The water tanks are over here. City-owned property there. There was a thought at one time, and it still might materialize, I don't know. Summit Creek talked about giving the city, I think this area up here, they didn't know what to do with it, but there was talk about it, whether they do eventually or not, I don't know. But, this is these are the switchbacks up here. This is part of the city property, then this turns into, I don't know if it's state or federal up there, Ted.
Yeah.
BLM, okay.
Oh,
that's better.
I remember when we had the open meeting, when we did the general plan, with somebody along here,
Yeah,
and the trail goes right along the back of it on that map, and she just got so upset. I don't want people walking around the back of my property.
yeah.
Well, just FYI, these guys over here, Treehouse,
So now this is gonna be developed.
this will all be
That's all
developed,
part of the Davis property.
and they are doing a bunch of
That
trail
goes over
systems
here.
in here. And they have already discussed interest in connecting to a trail system that would connect to Woodland Hills.
Oh, really?
So you could walk through here and back up through Woodland Hills, and
Huh?
big trail system that connect to them as well.
Oh, there may be
And
something.
they're gonna have
there.
parks and that
Put
kind of
things
stuff.
along here to connect in there somewhere, cause their treehouse, this comes clear over to here.
Yeah, I think right now they've only got planned about right in here to develop,
Okay.
cause this is a little too steep.
So we'll keep this here and it can be referred to and as time, but keep this in mind. That was the idea behind this, to try to identify where these easements are and see if we can, particularly drainage easements. This is a big one, but this is really problematic as far as getting permissions go. Can take it all the way down here and come out here on Oak and then down. But to get permissions and easements from all these people, well, not so much, well, here obviously, but this is a drainage easement already that the city has. But then once you get here, then you've got problems with getting it, trying to go out the rest of the way.
So even though there's a natural drainage here, there are no drainage easements from there on?
From there on, yeah.
Interesting.
It is, yeah, it's,
And as part of the stormwater management plan, we're looking at a few of these areas to do some sort of retainage.
yeah. So if you make a little pond area and, you know, with seats around it or whatever, as part of it. And it's not to say that we can't, you know, develop just something in here, a little park area or something, but again, the access to it can be problematic.
You know, they have stuff around the pond area there.
Yeah? Put water in it?
I got a lady that emailed me here in town about a month ago, which I just remembered yesterday. Oh, whatever you guys planted over there as part of the mitigation is some of the most beautiful stuff I've ever seen. Can you get me what that seed mix was? I don't have any clue what we planted there.
Is she thinking about the Russian thistle that's growing up
That's
over
what
there?
I'm thinking. I was looking at it the other morning. I was like, how can you think that's be? Last year was full of sunflowers. Maybe that's what she saw. This
Yeah.
year it's all that wheat,
Yeah.
thistles, and stuff
Russian
like that.
thistle.
I'm like, how did you get that out of there?
Well, you know,
Beauty's
it's
magical.
interesting. When they had the art thing going on, we were up at Dahl's house, and there's a little Julian balcony that overlooks the flood mitigation next to Bishop Baker's house. And, you know, the weeds were up and it was green, and it was a beautiful serpentine going down there. And everybody was looking at them, what's that? I said, that's the flood mitigation. Flood mitigation? What do you need flood mitigation up here for? Going off the mountain.
You see these big mountains above us? You have water tends to run off those
Yeah,
things.
yeah. It's so, I wanted to touch on trails, just to bring you up to speed with that. Miscellaneous, anything that you wanna, we'll have a little short discussion after, but anything miscellaneous from planning commission or carryover or anything that?
I can't think of anything.
So,
Yeah, I don't know.
okay,
Just one item maybe, and I don't know, maybe this is offline to talk about. So,
we can.
I move we adjourn.
All right. At 8:10, the motion to adjourn, all in favor? Aye.
second, aye.
Very good. Click the red thing on there.